Hello and welcome. Amudar Pratap Singh. You're joining us on NewsX. Our big story this hour: Prime Minister Narendra Modi held summit-level talks with Afghanistan President Ghani through virtual medium today. Both the countries signed the agreement on Shatut Dam, which would provide clean drinking water to 2 million citizens of Kabul and will also be used for irrigation. The Shatut Dam will be built on the Kabul River Basin. Afghan President Ghani thanked India for building infrastructure projects. He stated, and I quote, "India's development assistance to Afghanistan is iconically marked on our landscape." He termed India as a true partner in Afghanistan's development. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Modi assured India's full assistance to the conflict-ridden country. He stated that no outside force will be able to stop the country's development and friendship with India, and assured that India is and will continue to remain a partner in Afghanistan's development process. Remember, India has built many infrastructure projects in the conflict-ridden country. India has also committed Kabul to take up $80 million worth of projects. Joining us to look at this story further is Ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar, former diplomat. We also have Dr.Waiel, South Asia analyst, joining us live. Lieutenant General Kamal Davar, First Director General in Defence Intelligence Agency and Deputy Chief Integrated Defence Staff, is also joining us on the broadcast. Dr. Wad, let me begin with you first. Your takeaways of these talks today that were held between Modi and Ghani. What do you believe was the main takeaway of how the dialogue process has panned out for the day?
I think India has found its footprint in Afghanistan for ages, and it has already been cemented during the Ashraf Ghani tenure, and we have seen many of the Indian effort toward rebuilding of Afghanistan. And I always been of the view that if everybody have done what India done in Afghanistan, it's only India which have donated more than $3 billion to rebuilding of Afghanistan, roads, hospitals, training security officers, diplomats, and also military, and giving them all the help India was able to extend to Afghanistan, not only because of Afghanistan geopolitically important, but because of the love to the Afghani people. And India have never shied away from giving. Even now we have known that there are 500,000 doses of COVID vaccine have been donated, and there was an acknowledgement by the government of Afghanistan. And even the tragedy in Uttarakhand, which is the Indian mines have been loss of life because of the dam, there was also an acknowledgement and grievance by the government of Afghanistan. I think overall India is in the way ahead, and India kept a low profile of its relation with Afghanistan, which is a very commendable. And also now with the American pulls out of Afghanistan, I think the only trusted allies currently for Afghanistan is India, and that's why they're feeling also as a neighbor their destiny linked to India for decades to come.
Okay, Ashok Sajjanhar, is that something you are in agreement with? The fact is that this is a very sensitive time for Afghanistan, and this is a time when we perhaps need to lend them a helping hand like never before, so that the peace transition process, so that this new era for the country is ushered in the right manner.
Oh yes, no, I usually don't disagree with my good friend Dr. Waiel, and definitely at this juncture I don't agree with him at all. I fully agree completely with whatever he has said, and I think he's put it very rightly. These are difficult times, these are challenging times, these are problematic times, because the global equations are changing. And in that context, I think the friendship between both India and Afghanistan, it has been long-standing. It is not of today or the last few decades. It has been, and I think what is most important is, of course, relationship between the governments is important, but it's also a people-to-people relationship that has always been abiding. And we have seen over the last 20 years, as Dr. Awad has said, we have put in about more than $3 billion, and we continue to stand strongly with the Afghan people and with the Afghan government that represents the Afghan people. And whether it is in terms of projects, the Ule Khumri transmission project, or the Zaranj Delaram Road, the infrastructure projects, or the Parliament building, or the Salma Dam, Afghanistan-India Friendship Dam. These are the big projects, but in terms of the human resource development, human capacity development, across the board we have been helping Afghanistan. I think the challenge today is as has been mentioned, that we want to see, our basic fundamental position has been that we want to see an Afghan-led, Afghan-owned, Afghan-controlled peace process there. And the recent statements coming out of the Biden administration also, I think, are somewhat encouraging, somewhat positive, because earlier what had been said was that the February 29, 2020 agreement that was signed, all the US troops would depart by May 2021. But recently we have heard from the National Security Advisor of the Biden administration, Jake Sullivan, that this would be under review, and the Biden administration would also like the 2,500 American troops to leave, but they would like to leave in a responsible manner and not leave because there is an artificial deadline or a commitment. So I think what we really need to ensure in Afghanistan is peace and security, and that is what has been mentioned, that after the withdrawal of the foreign troops and the foreign forces, that we should have a democratic, we should have an independent, we should have a free, we should have a sovereign country, and that is what India is working towards in our conversations. You know that last year also we had the visit of Mr. Abdullah, the CEO of Afghanistan, who would come to India, who's negotiating with the Taliban in Doha. And this is what we want, that there should be peace, stability, security. And India, whatever final agreement is acceptable to the Afghans, that would be acceptable to India also. So I think the meeting today and the signing for the Shatut Dam, the $2 million dam that will take place, that will provide water to about 2 million people, and it's an 80 million project, and it will provide also electricity and energy. So I think that is a very welcome move, because most of the projects that India has been taking up are for the benefit of the common people in Afghanistan. Uday.
Okay, Lieutenant Dawar, quickly coming across to you at this point, your assessment of where India-Afghan ties stand currently, your takeaways from how the day today has processed, and the opportunities that still lie ahead, which we perhaps need to work closer on.
Thank you for getting me on your channel, and I totally agree with Ambassador Ashok Sajjanar and Dr. Waiel as to the progress of India-Afghanistan relations, which have been taking place very well in the last 15 years, I would say. And I am very happy to, feel that both the UPA government and later on the last 6-7 years, the Modi government have been doing extremely well. We must always remember that India is a highly respected country in Afghanistan. And why are we respected? Because we've never interfered with them politically. We've indulged in a lot of our soft power forays. They were all just mentioned. I don't want to repeat what Ambassador Ashok Sajjanar just said. And today also is a historic day both for Afghanistan and us, that this Shatut Dam will be providing clean drinking water to the poor residents of Kabul, and apart from the hydroelectric power and all. So our soft power forays, which cover the entire gamut of social welfare and infrastructure and power generation, education, medical, I think the Afghanistanis, the common people also love it. But now the point is, with the Biden administration coming in, I think India will have to play a major role in ensuring political stability and security to that impoverished, fratricidal, violence-afflicted country. And this is where India must step up its activities, help them militarily without putting any foots on the ground, help them militarily, and tell the Americans, don't be in a hurry, for God's sake, to leave Afghanistan in a mess. Why? Because, the Taliban talks and all are all right, but we all understand what is the mindset, the medieval extremist mindset of the Taliban. So, those talks can go on, But I think it's a very nice thing that both Abdullah, who's the chairman of the Peace Council, and President Ashraf Ghani are on the same page to bring peace and stability. And India must help Afghanistan to get a democratically elected government and not just leave it. And if the Americans leave Afghanistan in a hurry, I think there'll be a fair amount of trouble for those poor guys. Because as you know, despite all the talks and all the prisoners having been released by President Ashraf Ghani as the Taliban wanted, unfortunately the Taliban continues with its violence activities and their assassinations and their bomb blasts every week in Kabul and other parts of Afghanistan. So India will have to now play a very major role, and we don't have to worry very much about Pakistan, who remain the biggest mischief makers as far as peace and stability in Afghanistan is concerned. India must follow a moral policy and a policy of in which we help Afghanistan as much as we can on humanitarian grounds.
Okay, stay with us, Lieutenant Dawar. Dr. Awad, quickly taking that back across to you. The Shatut Dam as well, sir, was extensively spoken about today. Just tell our viewers about this project and why it's so significant.
Well, I think it is significant because it will provide irrigation and it will provide water for more than 2 million people. It's a $300 million project. And India has been talking about that they wanted to help Afghani people, and they have been doing so for so many years. So I think this dam, which will be of a very important project for the Afghani people, and definitely it will leave a good mark among the sentiments of the Afghani people toward India, which we have already seen. It has been matured, it has been mushroomed throughout the years, and we have seen even among people who have sympathy to the Taliban have recognized that the only country in this world, to be honest, that have been contributing to India, to Afghanistan is India. So this project falls in the hands of the Afghani people and helping the government, where they will give more than 400 hectares of agricultural land to Chahar, Asyad and Karibat district in the Kabul province as well. So I think all that sort of project, remember, Afghanistan is only 12% of Afghanistan is only irrigation land. Therefore, people goes for the opium and go for the drugs. So when India is doing a job for providing alternative to the drugs, where it can be, agricultural business and benefit, people will be opted more toward this kind of benefit from that, and that therefore more than 147 millions of cubic metric water will be provided, meter of water will be provided for the people and for the irrigating and expanding the land of irrigation. This will help in promoting and prospering the Afghani people. And I think that's the main objective of this project, where India have made it very clear to President Ghani through the Prime Minister of India that India support Afghani people and India support the development and will be always involved in the development and rebuilding and rehabilitation of the Afghani people.
Okay, also, of course, it's the infrastructure push, which is again another game changer in these ties. The infrastructure push, Ambassador Sajanhar, which we are rolling out and continue to roll out in Afghanistan. There has been another fresh commitment today of about $80 million worth of more projects in Kabul. And remember, this is very important for them as well, because it's always been a conflict-ridden country. So development has always had to pay a cost due to the spending on counter-terrorism and their military set up and establishment. So infrastructure, much needed, and India is rising to the occasion. Ambassador Sajana.
No, you are very right, Uday, because what we have realized is that if the people are to be weaned away from terrorism, are to be weaned away from violence, there has to be economic development. And it sometimes becomes a catch-22 situation, that unless there is peace, there will be no development. And if there is violence that is taking place, then of course there cannot be peace and no development can take place. So India has moved in these big ticket, big size infrastructure development projects. We have recounted some of them, the roadways, the transmission lines, and so on and so forth. But in addition to that, in each of the provinces, what we have also recently discussed is and decided, agreed upon is that there would be high impact community development projects in all the 33 provinces there. So that is going to help the people, and that is the what is going to bring in peace. What you mentioned just now about the 80 million development project, infrastructure project in Kabul, that also is extremely useful, extremely vital, because that will improve the living standard of the people. And that is what is really required. If we have to get peace and development and security and growth, then these infrastructure projects are absolutely essential. And I'm extremely happy that in addition to the human capacity development, human resource development that is going on, we also have the Afghan security forces who are coming to India to participate and to get further training. But the real focus of all that India has contributed over the last 20 years, since the Taliban was thrown out of Kabul, has been on infrastructure, has been on developmental projects. And that is what is showing, and that is what is getting translated also, Uday, into the very great affection and respect that India and Indian people have in Afghanistan. We have also supplied, although Chabahar port is not working to full capacity, but we have supplied 75,000 tons of wheat through Chabahar port to Afghanistan, in addition, of course, to the recent 500,000 doses of the coronavirus vaccine. So I think in every sense of the way, another aspect from the arrival, from the advent of the Biden administration could be that if the pressure on Iran comes down to some extent, then we could see that the Chabahar project would also be getting reactivated. Very recently, just a couple of days ago, India has supplied some cranes to Iran for work at the Chabahar project. And also, as far as the railway line is concerned, from Chabahar through Zahedan to the Iran-Afghan border. So I think all these projects are very important. India is committed to these projects, but we need to ensure that the security issues are taken care of so that our people can go. And I think the companies, the business industry can also feel comfortable and confident that they will be able to work there and deliver to the best extent possible.
Okay. Lieutenant Dawar, though, security perspective now, sir, that we'd like from you, given that these talks also happen at a time when the transition process is on, the peace negotiations are still on, what kind of role can India further play in this, transition as well, and the talks, of course, with the Taliban and the deal with the Taliban?
Right. You see, the Taliban will continue to, sort of indulge in assassinations and bomb blasts and things like that till they are not in power. They want to, increase their leverage by all these violent activities. And as we all know, the Pakistani ISI has been totally supporting them both with equipment, training, and everything. Now, as far as the Americans are concerned, they should not, and as I mentioned, I'm repeating myself, we should persuade them not to leave Afghanistan in a hurry till peace and stability comes. And importantly, the Afghanistan National Security Forces are in a position to maintain law and order and security within Afghanistan. Now, that's not going to be an easy thing to achieve. Now, as far as India is concerned, as you know, we've given them some military equipment, largely, as a matter of fact, largely non-lethal. We've been training the Afghanistani forces and their police forces since many, many years. So we must continue with that. We must increase and augment the training facilities for them. And also, I would say, and I've written about this many times earlier, since some years, that we should also give them some lethal military equipment so that they can take on the Taliban, effectively. At the moment, as we know, the Taliban controls a large amount of Afghanistani countryside, and they will always, till the Taliban does not achieve their nefarious ends, they'll continue to, indulge in violence activities and take up cudgels against the current Afghanistani government. So we must militarily support. Now we've given them 4 Mi-25 choppers with the option of 1 more, and things like that. We can give them some artillery guns. We can give them some armored personal carriers. There's nothing very much to it. We have adequate in our stocks. We can give it to them from some of our reserves, so that the Afghanistani National Security Forces, the ANSF, are, they are fully equipped to take on the Taliban. But however, I would like to mention here that we must not put boots on the ground. That will not be a good step. However, militarily, we must help them with equipment and things, and training and things like that.
Okay, Dr. Awad, you agree on this? I would like you to weigh in also on the security angle.
I think there are 2 issues here one have to highlight. One is the American policy. Biden have inherited, the longest war of American history, that is in Afghanistan, and there will be difficulty for him to fully pull out of Afghanistan. There may be withdrawal, there will be reduction of the forces, but definitely the sign of remaining active in Afghanistan is by keeping Zalmay Khalilzad as the special envoy, which he continue, and he has been the broker of the peace deal in the February 2020 agreement. So therefore, I think there will be a rule of the United States. They will continue, because it is not the ISIS or Al-Qaeda which have brought the American there. But definitely they have more objective to reach, especially in the CIS, where the oil and gas, and that is the American lust for the, would continue. That's the interest, and we understand most of the American foreign policy makers who were in previous administrations have been on the board of most of the gas and oil in these countries. Having said that, I would say India has to calculate 2 issues. One is the revival of terrorism and extremism in the country, where it could be of a dangerous of coming back of certain group, which is anti-India policy. And if America leave in a hurry and leave the vacuum for the Pakistanis bringing the Taliban, which means give uncertainty, and Indian security and defense and should be a new doctrine for India to draft. There are lots of development within the Indian neighborhood, whether it is Myanmar, whether it's Afghanistan, whether it is Pakistan. I think India has to see a new revival of its own doctrine in this part of the world, because the regional powers are trying to take advantage of the vacuum, where the United States is more focused toward the Asia Pacific, toward China. But there will be, this is one of the prime important region. There should be no back of terrorism organization, because the extension of Myanmar to Uyghur region, to Afghanistan and CIS country, all is a vulnerability, especially when we see the Turkish card also is playing very hard, not only in Afghanistan, and but many parts neighboring India.
Okay. Ambassador Sajjanar, on of course the US's role now, and also how we can guard against Pakistan interference once again in the region.
Yes, basically I think as far as the United States decision to have a review of this agreement of February 2020, because what I think the United States finds extremely disconcerting, as indeed does India, is that violence continues, that there is no peace in Afghanistan. Now what the Taliban maintain is that ceasefire and peace in Afghanistan is going to come as a result of an intra-Afghan agreement and not prior to that. And also they maintain that all the violence that is taking place. Now it needs to be recognized that the violence against the US troops and the international security forces has come down significantly, but the violence against the Afghan security forces has increased, and against the Afghan people. So in terms of violence, there has been an increase notwithstanding the fact that the talks between the Afghan government and the Taliban started in Doha in September of last year, but the violence has not come down. So this is a point that has been taken note of by the American incoming administration. This is a point that we have also been making, that we should have ceasefire, but as General Dawar said very correctly, that what the Taliban wants is that it wants to enhance its influence and control over as much of Afghan territory as possible so that they have a stronger hand from which they can negotiate. So this is something, but that having been said, the Americans will be there. We have to also coordinate our position with the other neighbors, for instance, with Iran, for instance, with Central Asia, because any instability in Afghanistan is also instability in Central Asia. We've seen that because 3 of the Central Asian countries have borders with Afghanistan, and that can create problems in those countries. Now, Mr. Biden also definitely wants to get out of this area. It is the longest war. It's a never-ending war. He has said that himself in the past, that he wants to get out of this area. But he doesn't want to get out in a hurry so that it will again pose a security threat as far as America is concerned. So I think some bit of troops will stay there. I do not think that the oil in Central Asia has much of an attraction for the United States at this juncture, because there is much more. The oil in Central Asia is only with Kazakhstan, and some substantial quantities, but not all that significant. So this is the position as far as America is concerned. As far as India is concerned, we have to sort of make sure that our interests are protected, so that Afghanistan does not become another area from which attacks on India can be launched. And in that sense, we have to coordinate with the neighbors, Russia, Central Asia, Iran, and ensure that India is at the high table to take decisions when the peace agreement for Afghanistan is being finalized. Of course, in collaboration in conjunction with the United States, and yesterday the discussion between Prime Minister Modi and President Joe Biden has been very positive. There's been nothing that has been mentioned on Afghanistan, but I'm sure going forward, our senior officials and ministers are definitely going to be speaking about this.
All right. Well, let's leave it at that. My thanks to all of our guests for joining us in breaking down this story.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.